senator. I mean, I don't care whether the guy's got a degree from college or not. When you become president of the United States like George Bush, I mean, wow, that's pretty significant. Now, George Bush went to college, but did you know we had some presidents that became president of the United States and they never went to college? Abraham Lincoln never spent a day in college. He became president of the United States. And you go back and you take a look at George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, John Tyler, William Henry Harrison, James K. Polk, Zachary Taylor, Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, James Buchanan. Can you name any of those presidents that went to college, got a college degree? So when did we get off on this thing over here that if you don't have a degree from college, you got to be stupid? You don't know anything. Can you name any college graduates who signed the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution of the United States? There were some. We had colleges and universities back in those days. Yale and Harvard were colleges, and they go clear back to prior to the Revolution. I mean, we've had institutions of higher learning in this country, clear back into colonial times. I'm not suggesting to you, that college is something new, just came about in the Clinton administration. I didn't mean to imply that. We've had them for a long time. I just wanted to point out that there was a time in America that when we had, we had people elected to public office, they didn't always go to college, and here's something that's really hard to believe. You're about to read the names of 12 of our nation's most prominent lawyers. One of these men was a law school dropout. Let's see if you can guess his name. Now, I'm going to read you 12 names here and 12 stories. 12 stories about 12 of the most prominent lawyers in America. Men whose names you're going to recognize right away. Now listen to this. One of these guys is a law school dropout. One of these guys dropped out of law school. One of these guys did not get a degree from law school. Let's see if we can figure out who it was. The first name here is Patrick Henry. He passed his oral bar examination in 1760. And within 3 years had handled more than 1,100 cases. He was a member of the Continental Congress and later governor of Virginia. Now, surely Patrick Henry could not have been a law school dropout, having been governor of Virginia. And within 3 years of passing his bar examination, handled 1,100 cases. I mean, that's John Jay. John Jay was the first Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, and he was admitted to the bar in 1768. And subsequently, he distinguished himself as the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Surely John Jay, first Justice of the Supreme Court, could not have been a law school dropout, now could he? John Marshall passed his bar exam in 1780, and he later became a Supreme Court Chief Justice. Come on, kids. Surely the two most prominent Chief Justices of our history, John Jay the first and John Marshall the second, served longer, I think, John Marshall did than anybody else. William Wirt, W-I-R-T, was barely 20. Now, you probably not too familiar with William Wirt. He was barely 20 when he practiced law in Culpeper County, Virginia, and he eventually became United States Attorney General. Attorney General of the United States, a law school dropout? That's crazy. Roger Taney, he was admitted to practice in 1799. He served as first Secretary of the Treasury and then as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Now here's another. This is the third guy who became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Surely he couldn't have been a law school dropout. Daniel Webster was admitted to the Boston Bar in 1805. He established a phenomenal legal reputation, and also he served as Secretary of State in 1841. Daniel Webster. Webster's Dictionary. I mean, that's a pretty famous guy. Admitted to the Boston Bar in 1805. established a phenomenal legal reputation, and served as Secretary of State in 1841. Hell, he held the same office as Condoleezza Rice does today. And then there was Salmon P. Chase. He gained his early prominence as a defense attorney for runaway slaves and also later became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Salmon P. Chase. Abraham Lincoln, he gained his experience as a lawyer and became the 16th President of the United States. Now that's the guy that's probably the law school dropout. I'll just bet you it's Abraham Lincoln. Just tuck that one away in your heart now. Wait a second. Stephen Douglas. Remember the famous Lincoln-Douglas debates? Well, Stephen Douglas was admitted to the bar in 1834. He later became a representative and then a senator from Illinois. And he's best remembered for his debates with Abraham Lincoln. Remember, it was called the Lincoln-Douglas debate. Clarence Darrow was a lawyer of world renown whose most famous case was the Scopes case. Remember the Scopes monkey trial? Well, back in 1925, William Jennings Bryan was defending the school board. Or excuse me, he was defending the creation point of view, and Clarence Darrow was representing Scopes, the school teacher who was teaching evolution in the public school. And he was representing the evolutionary point of view. That was Clarence Darrow. Clarence Darrow. Well, anyway, Clarence Darrow, lawyer of world renown, whose most famous case was the Scopes trial, the so-called monkey trial of 1925. Then there's Robert Story. Robert Story was born in 1893. He served as president of the American Bar Association in 1952. 1952. And in 1953. Well, you know, a guy that's the president of the American Bar Association could not be a law school dropout, now could he? And then Strom Thurmond. Remember I told you about him a little earlier. Strom Thurmond was admitted to the bar in 1930. He later became governor of South Carolina, then senator from that state. Now remember, one of these distinguished gentlemen is a law school dropout. He abandoned law school after the first year, never to return. Only went to law school 1 year. One of these famous men is a law school dropout. Listen, Patrick Henry, John Jay, John Marshall, William Wirt, Roger Taney, Daniel Webster, Salmon P. Chase, Abraham Lincoln, Stephen Douglas, Clarence Darrow, Robert Story, or Strom Thurmond. Which one of those 12 do you think was a law school dropout? Well, here's the answer. Clarence Darrow was that dropout. That's right. Clarence Darrow is the one name that the whole world associates with the practice of law. He attended law school for only 1 year, and he never distinguished himself, and he dropped out to study law on his own. Okay, so it was Clarence Darrow. But in concluding, we should point out that the other 11 distinguished American lawyers could not have dropped out of law school. They could not have dropped out of law school because they never attended law school at all. Now, did you get that, boys and girls? 12 of the most famous lawyers in American history, one of them went to law school. Clarence Darrow for 1 year. The other 11, including 4 Chief Justices of our Supreme Court, 4 Chief Justices, never spent a single day in law school. Hell, I'll bet you they never spent a single day in college. Most of them. Now again, I want to emphasize to those of you that are college grads and you have degrees after your name that I'm not making fun of you now. Not suggesting that you wasted all of your time there, although it's a good possibility that you wasted some of your time there. I mean, you can figure that out for yourself. And And there's some people that went to college and they learned some good stuff and they came out and they invented some very good, useful, productive items. But I'm going to make a point and I'm going to make a distinguishing characteristic here that just because you've got a degree after your name doesn't mean that I will necessarily want to follow after you. And if you'll notice in the last election, I'm not so sure that the majority of Americans want to follow after George Bush and the Iraq policy or the Republican policy. And all of those people have degrees after their names, and I'm pointing out to you that just because people have degrees after their names does not mean that they've got all the answers. Now, you just take a look at one more subject over here called medicine. Now, we've been told by the paid professionals, starting from President Nixon in 1972 or 73, that he was going to declare war on cancer. Do you remember that? And we're now spending federal tax monies on this war on cancer. And all of the people who are involved in the war on cancer are college graduates. I'll just bet you that there's not a single person that is engaged in any scientific pursuit in any institution, any hospital, any clinic, any research facility in this country engaged in the war on cancer, any scientist who's engaged in this operation collecting federal tax dollars for his paycheck, not a single one of them hasn't got a college degree. And they've been working on this problem for 40 years, and they haven't come up with a cure to cancer yet. But do you know there's 9 cures to cancer? And I've laid all 9 of those cures to cancer out here on the air. And 7 of the 9 were discovered by medical doctors who did go to college. So of the 9 cures to cancer, 7 of the 9 cures were discovered by college graduates who have medical degrees and are medical doctors, and not a single one of those cures to cancer is tolerated by, used by, or practiced by a single medical doctor in the United States of America or the American Medical Society today. Now, isn't that just real special? Now, what the hell's going on here, kids? Why is it that we have cures to cancer that we can't use, and we have billions of dollars being spent on cancer research that we can't find the solution to? What the hell's going on here? And all these people have degrees. You know, if I had a guy working on my job and I sent him out here to find a solution to a problem, I mean, if we had an engineer over here that was on the staff and we said, hey, listen, we got an engineering problem, go out here and solve this problem, the guy comes back and he doesn't have a solution, there's not a one of them that could hold his job, we'd fire him. If I sent a plumber out and said, go fix this problem out here, and the guy came back and said, well, we've been looking and looking and working, and we just couldn't find the solution to the problem, boss, we'd can him. Now, why is it that we can hire scientists for decade after decade after decade to find a solution to a problem? I mean, hell, when the Air Force comes to a Lockheed and says we need an airplane that does this and such, they build it. When they came to the Lockheed people and said we need an airplane that goes Mach 3, that can run out faster than a speeding bullet, they went out and they built the SR-71. That was a success story, kids. They didn't come back and say, gee, we failed after billions of dollars, but you haven't got a cure to cancer, but you got an SR-71? Mull that one over for a while, would you? We'll mull that one over till tomorrow night, and then we'll come back tomorrow night and tell you some more of the story on the professionals. But in the meantime, let me remind you that you are listening to The Law Hour, an editorial review, sponsored by the Gorden Law School of Isabella, Missouri. Now, the Law Hour is heard 7 days a week here in the United States, worldwide over the Internet. If you'd like more information about the Law School and the Law Hour, please go to our website. Remember, that's georgegordon.org. Now, the Law School is a private, non-commercial, non-profit, non-sectarian law school. It is open to individuals by prearrangement. And the Law Hour is carried worldwide over the Internet, and all of these Law Hour programs are archived on the Internet by title and date for your listening convenience. And the Law Hour is an educational service brought to you in the public interest. Hey, our time's about up. We got to leave it right there. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Same time, same station. God willing, of course. So until then, thanks for listening, everybody, and good night, friends.